Greetings, traveler. I'm Nikolaipa, the Blue Wizard. As Tolkien fans know, there were two of us, but I'm not sure what happened to the other guy. We last spoke in 1999, and he was rambling about his Corvette, its in and outside, and his girlfriend. At one point he just gave up on speech and went dabba-dee dabba-die. What a bizarre individual. Anyway, here's a video about why the Fellowship of the Ring is the best. A sizable portion of this video is going to be me complaining about The Two Towers and The Return of the King, so let me be clear. Both films are very good. Peter Jackson and company did not drop the ball, but they did allow the ball to become something of a yo-yo. The Two Towers and The Return of the King are movies of inconsistent quality, constantly oscillating between triumphant and disappointing moments. To put it another way, with The Two Towers and The Return of the King, Jackson and co. hit a target no one else could hit, which is excellent. But with The Fellowship of the Ring, they somehow hit a target no one else could even see. Here are my ratings for all three films. Fellowship, 10 out of 10. The Two Towers, 8 out of 10. The Return of the King, also an 8 out of 10, but it's closer to a 9 than The Two Towers. I trust this shows my deep appreciation for the entire trilogy. I am a fan, not a hater. So here are 5 reasons why The Fellowship of the Ring is the best one and deserves a perfect 10 out of 10 rating. 1. Its presentation of Middle-earth is the most compelling. 2. It features the most captivating character development. 3. Its plot always revolves around the One Ring. 4. It delivers suspense and scares, not just action. And 5. It's free of contrivances and unnecessary additions to the narrative. There's also a 6th reason, the most important one that I did not really understand for years, even though I always felt it. The Fellowship of the Ring has a certain je ne sais quoi, a particular confiture de beurre magique that I still find difficult to explain, but I will try anyway, and I will save that for the end of the video. Let's consider each of these reasons more thoroughly. The first reason speaks for itself. As the first film of the trilogy, The Fellowship of the Ring introduced us to Peter Jackson's vision/interpretation of Tolkien's Middle-earth. And what an interpretation it was. The brilliant artwork of Alan Lee, John Howe, and the other artists working on these films made the world of Middle-earth look and feel completely magical and more real than reality itself. Granted, the special effects, particularly the green screen shots, have not aged very well, and this is especially apparent in 4K and even Full HD resolutions. But is it possible for anyone to see Rivendell for the first time and not believe it is real? Surely I'm not alone in questioning how they filmed this on location in Middle-earth. How did they get there? Because they must have. That is real. As an aside, this single zoom-in shot is my all-time favorite in all of cinema. I have never witnessed such magic before, and I doubt any movie could ever replicate it. Now let's refocus on the key point. The journey in Fellowship includes the Shire, Isengard, Bree, Rivendell, Caradhras, Moria, Lothlorien, Anduin River, and we get a glimpse of Minas Morgul, Barad-dûr and Mordor, and Minas Tirith as well. In terms of locations, the follow-up films simply are no match for Fellowship. The Two Towers unveils 6 new locations: Emin Muil's rocky landscape, Fangorn Forest, Edoras, Helm's Deep, the Dead Marshes, and Osgiliath. However, these lack the magic of Rivendell, the scale of Moria, or the nighttime eeriness of Bree. The Return of the King only introduces the viewer to Minas Tirith, Shelob's Lair, Cirith Ungol, and finally Mount Doom. There is also the Mountain Pass, where the cursed army of the dead dwells, but like Cirith Ungol or Emin Muil's rocks, it is nothing special, and the Ghost Army just sucks, but we will get to that. Let's discuss character arcs. The Fellowship of the Ring, in my opinion, has a remarkably, almost unbelievably satisfying conclusion. This magnificent ending succeeds not just because of the exciting action or the promise of future adventures, but because of the satisfying character arcs of Sam, Aragorn, Boromir, and Frodo. All characters, aside from Boromir of course, also undergo significant development in The Two Towers and The Return of the King. Nevertheless, the bulk of character development takes place in Fellowship, which is impressive since the first film also needed to introduce all of these characters. A thorough analysis of every character arc would be most time-consuming, Therefore, I'll summarize Frodo, Boromir, Sam and Aragorn's internal journeys and pose a simple question to support my assertion that Fellowship did it best. In The Fellowship of the Ring, Frodo discovers a stark contrast between fantasizing about adventure and experiencing it, and he comes to accept Galadriel's words, to bear a ring of power is to be alone. Aragorn justifies Arwen's trust by showing his strong moral fiber, resisting the ring and escaping the fate of his ancestor Isildur. Despite succumbing to the ring's allure, Boromir's selfless act of saving two companions in a desperate battle earns him forgiveness and redemption in his last moments. Sam learns that a frying pan can be used as a surprisingly effective melee weapon, and more importantly, he demonstrates that a private oath born of genuine love and friendship holds no less power than a public declaration of loyalty. My question is, did the character development of Sam, Frodo and Aragorn in the next two films match or surpass what I have just described? Also, among the characters introduced in The Two Towers and The Return of the King, were there any with equally or more impactful internal arcs? This is not just a rhetorical question, so please share your thoughts in the comments below. You might have guessed this from 300 leagues away, but my answer is no. To conclude this section, let's briefly discuss Aragorn's most pivotal and grandest moment. Aragorn telling Frodo to run and facing the Uruk-hai alone is the best thing ever. The look in his eyes, his raised sword, his fearlessness and his willingness to die for Frodo. Trying to explain how awesome this moment is would require the linguistic skills of Professor Tolkien himself. I do know though why it's so awesome. Aragorn just completely turned down the Ring of Power moments before. This completion of his internal arc was the most important victory of his life, far more important than winning the throne of Gondor. And we the audience felt Aragorn's unprecedented surge of self-belief and determination in facing the enemy here. The subsequent films failed to surpass the greatness of this moment and his character arc in Fellowship. Aragorn's charge into Mordor's armies before the Black Gate following his proclamation for Frodo is a good scene. However, we had already seen this exact moment in a more powerful context at the end of The Fellowship of the Ring. Also, Aragorn's plight in Fellowship was powerfully portrayed through dynamic camera work, while the Black Gate scene's flat static shot felt inappropriately comedic. In addressing the Two Towers' expanded cast, I must also highlight Fellowship's third advantage, the central role of the One Ring in the narrative. Gollum, Theoden and Eowyn are my favorite characters from the Two Towers. Of those three, only Gollum's struggles or desires relate to the One Ring. Perhaps you're questioning why this is a problem. Eowyn's and Theoden's character development is ultimately excellent. Well, yes, it is too excellent. Just like the Rohan storyline and the Battle of Helm's Deep are both too good. You likely understand what I'm getting at. In The Two Towers, Frodo's quest is relegated to a relatively poorly executed secondary storyline. Plus, the tale of Merry and Pippin and the Ents creates another storyline. Juggling 3 or more plots simultaneously is always risky in storytelling. Audiences can follow multiple storylines if the film editor has done their job, so that is not necessarily a concern. The challenge lies in crafting storylines that are equally captivating and ideally enhance one another. You don't want to make the audience feel whiplash due to tonal inconsistencies or have them yearn for a fast forward button in certain story scenes. It's no surprise that Peter Jackson, Philippa Boyens and Fran Walsh got the mood or tone exactly right. They are skilled storytellers. However, the storylines of Frodo and Sam with Faramir and of Merry and Pippin with Treebeard are nowhere near as exciting as the Battle of Helm's Deep. Hence, only 1/3 of the final third of The Two Towers is truly great. I'd like to quickly address a possible strawman counterargument regarding that statement. What makes the Faramir and Treebeard storylines largely a waste of time isn't the absence of exciting action. The problem is wheel spinning. Faramir and Treebeard's storylines falter because the writers delay the inevitable by turning both characters into obstacles. The contrived nature is so clear it feels exactly like the excessive pause taken by a singing competition host before they reveal the name of the winner. But it's even worse than that. It's more like a long pause before an announcement when everyone is already aware of who the winner is. Viewers almost certainly know Faramir won't take the ring, and they also know Treebeard and the Ents wouldn't be in the story if they didn't actively take part in the plot. So it's easy to share Merry and Pippin's impatience and perhaps even to feel bored. during the Ents' private debate, since even non-book readers can tell the Ents will join the battle. A comparison of Frodo and Sam's persistent pleas to Faramir, Merry and Pippin's extended anticipation of the Ents' decision, and the dramatic Helm's Deep battle clearly highlights the varying narrative quality. The battle is fantastic because of its superb build-up, well-established stakes, cherished characters participating in all the action, and the well-earned triumph at the end. It's not fantastic, however, to watch Frodo and Sam tell Faramir to let them go over and over until he does, or to watch Pippin and Merry wait for the Ents to decide until Pippin says screw it and decides to decide for them. Despite Sam's iconic speech bringing the three narratives together, only Helm's Deep offered a journey befitting that ending. To be fair, the Faramir and Treebeard subplots offer more than just filler. Gollum's feeling betrayed by Frodo is a direct result of Faramir's actions, while Treebeard's neutrality increased Pippin and Merry's influence. Yet, both narrative successes have their respective downsides. The increased importance of Pippin and Merry compromises narrative coherence and Treebeard's characterization. The notion that Treebeard remained ignorant of Fangorn Forest's devastation before Merry and Pippin's arrival is insulting. I'd even say Jackson and his co-writers came close to reducing the Ents from thematically rich, significant characters to mere biological superweapons. The way Jackson, Walsh and Boyens handled Faramir is arguably even more problematic. In The Two Towers, what is the point of Faramir's character arc other than to be a temporary obstacle in Frodo's path? Who is Faramir even meant to be? His seemingly overwhelming need to please his father and live up to his brother is easily overcome by Sam's speech, and he immediately allows Frodo and the ring to go free. Perhaps Frodo facing the Nazgul made Faramir realize the ring's true threat. That's a valid point, although perhaps he should have reasoned, I cannot leave the ring with this suicidal weirdo. In any case, the writers added an illogical scene to dispose of Faramir, a problem they themselves invented. Time to talk suspense. The fourth reason why the Fellowship of the Ring is the best one. It prioritizes suspense, whereas The Two Towers and The Return of the King focus on large-scale action sequences. I find running and hiding more enjoyable than epic battles. I know what's going through your head right now. You're asking if Sir Robin of Camelot penned the script for this review. He did not. Just hear me out. The battles of Helm's Deep and Pelennor Fields place Aragorn, Legolas and Gimli in mortal danger. Yet, even discarding main character powers or plot armor, they surpass nearly every orc or Uruk-hai in combat skill. The high probability of their survival makes for relatively little suspense. In contrast to this, Gandalf's announcement of the Balrog's invulnerability to swords transforms the narrative's tone. Any prior optimism vanishes, replaced by palpable suspense for the audience. I'll give another example, using the Nazgul. To me, the way the Nazgul and the Witch King especially are depicted in The Two Towers and The Return of the King best demonstrates the change in tone and reduced suspense from the Fellowship of the Ring. In The Return of the King, Gandalf hypes the power of the Witch King. However, the Nazgul's leader is ultimately just another foe to be vanquished, and for a soldier of Gondor, it likely makes little difference if they are killed by an arrow shot by an orc or a flail swung by a Nazgul. Don't get me wrong, the Witch King's aerial assault on Minas Tirith is undeniably amazing and one of the movie's highlights. But is it nearly as frightening and suspenseful as the Nazgul's assault on Bree or Weathertop? In my opinion, it's not. Although a badass with a fearsome beast, the Witch King's now out in the open, meaning he and his winged beast are now targets, not just threats. It's been established by this point that fell beasts can be harmed by arrows, and Gandalf can ward them off with his glowing staff. This was not the case when the Nazgul chased Frodo, Sam, Merry and Pippin in the Fellowship of the Ring. The hobbits had no chance at all to survive, or even put up a significant fight. All they could do was run and hide, and eventually be saved by Aragorn. To solidify my point about suspense, and the audience's fear for the main character's safety, I ask you to consider Frodo's loss of his most powerful ally in the Fellowship of the Ring, a loss his other companions were helpless to prevent. There you go. In the Fellowship of the Ring, the characters hide, run, and fight, and they lose two powerful party members. However, the two sequels focus solely on fighting, with only one main character perishing in an admittedly touching scene. Fifth reason why Fellowship is the best. It skillfully avoided contrived plot additions and a Deus Ex Machina ending for its climactic scenes. Frodo's decision to send Sam away feels unnatural and artificial. The scenes before and the moment itself show the screenwriter's heavy hand very clearly. And Sam actually giving up and leaving is an even heavier slap in the face to the character and the audience. Alright, let's now talk about the worst of the worst, the Ghost Army. Actually, let me take a step back and reiterate that I like The Two Towers and The Return of the King. Both films are great, and they contain individual scenes just as good as any in The Fellowship of the Ring. In fact, some scenes are so iconic and well crafted that similar scenes in other films could never live up to them. Let me give you just two quick examples. The exorcism scene in the Golden Hall of Meduseld is so incredible that it's hard to believe something so exceptional even exists. One wizard exorcising another from the mind of a possessed king whose beard looks ready to start growing cranberries. In concept, this is as B-movie as it gets, but in execution, it's one of the most brilliant moments in fantasy cinema. Everything about it is perfect. From the creaking throne, to Saruman's pitiful threats, to Gandalf's stunning transformation and the musical cues that emphasize each moment, it all feels completely authentic. A scene like this couldn't be done any better. It's the greatest wizard exorcism scene possible and the last one that ever needs to be created. Arwen's vision of her and Aragorn's son, her return to Rivendell to confront Elrond, and the forging of Andoril from the shards of Narsil is my all-time favorite cinematic sequence. This 5-minute segment from The Return of the King deserves its own video, and maybe someday I'll make it. The characterization and symbolism are incredibly rich, and it's as visually stunning as its accompanying score is heartbreaking. Also, for fans of the books, the inclusion of 4 lines from Bilbo's Aragorn poem, sometimes called Riddle of the Strider, are a nice touch. And then we come to the Ghost Army. Radically different from their book counterparts, though this isn't inherently negative. The problem is that, unlike the wizard exorcism in The Two Towers, these dead guys truly are B-movie material. Their appearance is silly, their leader speaks silly, and to make matters worse, their inclusion resolves what should have been cinema's greatest battle in a way so underwhelming it rivals Mass Effect 3's ending for awfulness. Okay, it's not that bad. It couldn't possibly be that bad. Nothing ever could. But it's still pretty bad. I'm not even bothered that Aragorn didn't send the ghosts to Mordor before considering their oaths fulfilled. It's somewhat understandable. However, the Undead Army is, in my opinion, one of the worst examples of Deus Ex Machina ever put in a film. Even their introduction feels jarring and tonally inappropriate for a serious dark fantasy film. And their effortless victory devalues the struggles and accomplishments of the other characters. This didn't work as a satisfying conclusion. Had Gandalf used a powerful, previously unknown spell to end the siege of Minas Tirith by just snapping his fingers Thanos style, the ending would have been no less good. At least the audience knows and likes Gandalf. The sixth and final reason Fellowship is the best has nothing to do with The Two Towers or The Return of the King having flaws. No more criticisms, I promise. Before making this video, I rewatched the trilogy again for the 300th time. That number is probably not an exaggeration. During my teenage years, I watched The Lord of the Rings religiously, literally every single day, month after month after month. I'm telling you this because after 20 years and a few hundred viewings, I still almost didn't figure out how to explain that sixth reason. That would have been an epic failure, because wanting to explain why The Fellowship of the Ring is the best film ever is one of the 2 reasons I even took up criticizing things online as a hobby. Alright, here's my best attempt at explaining the best thing about The Fellowship of the Ring. The moment that completely hooked me, first time seeing Fellowship, was Gandalf and Frodo's tea-fueled conversation about the ring. Therefore, the solution to the mystery must lie within this scene. A scene devoid of action, new characters, or locations. The scene consists of Frodo, Gandalf, tea, the ring, and the chilling realization of Sauron's constant inherent presence. The homeliest and seemingly most secure place in Middle-earth shares its space with the greatest evil. That's what makes The Fellowship of the Ring so special. The ever-present proximity of evil. For as long as the story follows Frodo, and he still has the ring, there is exactly 0 comforting distance between the good, beautiful world worth fighting for, and the one that seeks to corrupt and destroy all of it. Thus, the movie masterfully builds an atmosphere thick with suspense, danger and paranoia, without giving its main antagonist the body or the ability to move at all. Coincidentally, or not, another all-time great story, Final Fantasy VII, my second reason for wanting to become an online art critic, shares a similar atmosphere, and its primary villain is also immobilized for most of the game. Great storytellers think alike. So, in conclusion, The Lord of the Rings is amazing. The Fellowship of the Ring is the bestest, mostest, amazingest, and if anyone out there disagrees, please let me know why. I promise I will read and respond to all the comments. Thank you for watching. May you always find great art to enjoy, and may you never run out of coffee and cookies. I look more like a Nazgul than a wizard. Da ba dee da ba da da ba dee da ba da da ba dee da ba da.